Good afternoon. So today I'm going to be working on a peekaboo from moremeknow, and I print mine at 85%. That's what I sell to my customers. I don't do the 100%. I just do it at 85%. And if you do not know how to do that, when you go to print and it says custom fit or add a percentage, I just click 85% or just type in 85 instead of 100 and print it out that way. So that's what I did, and I have it cut out, and I'm going to go over the materials and we're just going to hop right on into it. It doesn't take that long. I'll also explain to you how I do my zipper. I actually don't know how she does it in the pattern anymore. I just do it for all of my zippers across all of my patterns. So you should have your two main panel pieces, and I interface this with Decaville Light. That's it. I have my 4 side panels. You should have 2 and 2, which 2 of them going one way and 2 of them going the other way, so mirrored. Then you should have your 2 lining pieces, your 2 zipper tabs. I just cut them to whatever I feel like. I also have a tag for the outside, your zipper tape, which is what I get mine from myhandmadespace.com, and a zipper pull, which I think this one actually came from Amazon. So, and I use Selric bonded poly thread 100% from Amazon as well. And I have a Juki 1181. So we're just going to hop into it. Doesn't take that long. So we're going to do these 2 pieces at a time. We're going to take 1 main panel piece, 1 each of our side panels, and make sure they are lined up correctly. You want them, the long edges, going on the sides. So your notches should be facing towards the middle. And we are just going to clip all of that together. Right sides together. And because I did this at 85%, I'm not sure what, I can't remember what she says her seam allowance is, but for this 85%, I do mine at 1/4 of an inch. Honestly, seam allowance is really, I mean, as long as you keep your seam allowance the same throughout the whole pattern, or make sure if you read through the pattern, she doesn't switch up the seam allowances, because there could be a reason for that. But if not, if the seam allowance is the same throughout the whole pattern, your seam allowance can be whatever makes you feel comfortable. So here are the 2 panels, notches on the inside, and again, we're going to sew them down at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And we're just going to do 1 back to back. Make sure you back stitch at the beginning and the end. And instead of taking them both off, we're just going to snip 1 at a time to save on thread, and move to the next side. Okay, again, snip that off. Then we're going to open this, and we're going to top stitch on the side panel, which for me is the faux leather. So we're going to pull this, we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch on this side. I'm not going to pull it tight, I'm just pulling it enough to where it will lay flat, because if you pull it too tight, it will warp. If you don't pull it tight enough, it will warp. You kind of just got to do it in between. Again, don't forget to backstitch at the beginning and end. that is where we are top stitching. And I don't change my thread length. I leave it at a 4.5. The only time I ever change it really now is whenever I'm maybe appliquing, and I'll change it as far down as I can. But I just tend to forget to change it back and forth, so I just leave it at 4.5. Alright, so we are done with those panels, and we can take them both off. So our main panels are done. So now what we want to do is prepare our zipper. So I'm just going to take one main panel, it doesn't matter which, and on the back side, this is what I do for all of my zippers. You need a pen and just a ruler. And because my seam allowance is about 1/4 inch, I'm going to go in at 3/4 inch from each side at the top and make a mark. As you can see here, I don't know if you can see it, but there we go. 3/4 inch in, and then because that will give me room for my zipper tab to poke out. It will also give me room in case I am not far enough over one way or the other. I just figured that's what I use, and it seems to work out. So I'm going to lay my zipper in between those two marks and then cut it down in between those marks, because we still have to add our zipper tabs. We're going to burn the edges. And add our zipper pull. I use the fork method in the drawer of my, as you can see right here, in the drawer of my desk, my table. I'm just going to slide that zipper pull on and add my zipper. As you can see, here we go. So now we're going to just add our zipper tabs. The way I do mine is I lay them right sides together, each end. Then I will sew across at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I always back stitch over the zipper. And I'm just going to, without taking this off, just do the other side. It's long enough to fold over. So now what I'm going to do is just roll this over as tight as I can. Sometimes it helps to just put it on the table, just like that. And we're going to top stitch. Don't worry about folding this back end over. Nobody's going to see it. There's no point in having all that bulk. So now we're just going to top stitch, and I like to back stitch at the edge of the zipper tape. Just because whenever I do cut my zipper tab down just a little bit, I want to make sure that my back stitch isn't cut off. So we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Roll it up, get it straight. Trim off your threads. And here is where we will trim down our zipper tab. So you're going to just bend your zipper back, not too far, and we want to just cut it even with the front of your zipper tab. You don't want to cut it too short because it will bend. It just doesn't look right, and you don't want to cut it too long because then you will be able to see it. You just want to cut it the same. And then I will trim a little off the sides. I don't like to trim right at the zipper tape because with the constant open and closing and throwing it around and all kinds of stuff, I like the reinforcement in my zipper, in my seam allowance right here. That way too, if you can't sew very well in a straight line and keeping that straight, by having this extra, if you do end up veering off just a little bit right here, it's not, well, you know, right next to the zipper teeth, then you are still hitting that zipper tab and you don't have to worry about it coming undone. Just ask me how I know. Whenever I started sewing, I used to hate zipper tabs, but now they actually don't bother me by doing it this way. I just do it now. Doesn't bother me at all. But yes, I used to hate zipper tabs to the point where I would not make an item if I had to have zipper tabs. So now what we're going to do, there's no point in me getting the middle of the panel because I will just line my zipper right in between those two marks I made. See? You just put them in between the two marks that you made and clip it down. And I don't have to worry about snipping my zipper tape and burning it. I just put it in between and it fits. Plus, if it doesn't fit exactly perfect, if it like goes over a little bit, don't worry about it. That's why another reason why we did the 3/4 inch in, just in case maybe you cut your zipper on the outside of the lines or your zipper tab was not folded over all the way. It still gives you room. Now, if it is like a lot over your lines, you might want to snip the middle of your panel and snip the middle of your zipper just so you know you're in the center. Okay, so we clipped our zipper tape right sides together to one of our main panels. And then I'm going to re-clip my lining right sides together. So you should have like a zipper sandwich with everything right sides together. And we're just going to sew across a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I start all the way from the edge. I like to back stitch over that zipper tape, the zipper tab. Do not forget to move your zipper head. Rule of thumb is anytime you have to move your item, to have the needle down, move your item, and then continue stitching. Because that way, even if your item moves, your stitch line is not off. And I like to use my fingers right up against the zipper teeth so I know that I am like kind of hoping to staying in a straight line. Okay, so the way I do mine is I open it up after I sew everything down. I fold the zipper and the lining to the right. I fold the main panel and the seam allowance to the left. And then I top stitch through the main panel and the seam allowance only. It helps it whenever you go to close the bag for, to turn it. You don't get that big bulk on the side seams. So again, we're just going to finagle it until you want your main panel, seam allowance to the left, your lining and zipper to the right. We're just going to take our time. Again, have that needle down if you have to shift anything. And I use waterproof canvas for my lining. I don't know if I said that. And that way I don't have to interface. And it's easier to clean. And it kind of just hangs there. It's like really nice. Not bulky at all. So there we go. Now we're just going to, we don't need a ruler anymore. Just going to take our other panel and line it up. I like to line it up on the sides first and then move it up to my zipper. Then I will clip in the middle and flip it over and finish clipping it. I know I kind of probably do this backwards or different than other people, but this is just what has helped me. You can also use double-sided tape to keep your zipper down, or and your panels, but I've just learned to do it this way instead of using double-sided tape. So now we're going to add our linings right sides together. Again, it should be a zipper sandwich with all of your panels now right sides together. Your main panel to your main panel, and then your lining to your lining. So again, lining right sides together, main panel right sides together with your zipper in the middle. So now we're just going to sew down again with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you're back stitching at the beginning, and I also do it over the zipper tabs. Just using my finger to make sure I'm staying on. And I forgot to move my zipper head. Do not forget that, or you're going to have a big bulge. Okay. Now, whenever we top stitch, again, I'm going to close my zipper. I want everything to the right, and then your panel and seam allowance to the left. So you have your 2 linings and your already top stitched panel to the right, and then your untop stitched panel and seam allowance to the left. Now if you're left-handed, it's going to be opposite, but I'm right-handed, so that's how I do it. Now I'm going to pull that bottom lining piece straight, but again, not too tight or it will warp your zipper. I'm just going to take my time. Okay, there we have it. Your bag is almost finished. So we're going to open the zipper halfway, and we are going to get our tag. Okay, so after we open up our zipper about halfway, because we don't want the zipper pull on either end, especially because as big as this one is. Now we want to right sides together clip everything. So I start up here at the seams and I clip that, because if anything else doesn't match up, that's fine. I can fix that. But I want my seams to match up. So I clip right here at the seams. And then what I'll do is I will just move it around to get it to line up. Again, if it doesn't, don't freak out. And then the other thing I try to make sure is that the seams right here match up. Because sometimes, you know, with the way you cut or sew, something might not match up exactly. So as long as the seams do, then I'm fine. The rest of it I can work out with my seam allowance or something. Okay, so the exterior is done, and then for the interior, all I do is I just lay it flat, match up those notches, and I will put a couple of clips, and then I need a hole for turning. Here we go. And here is my tab I will put on the inside For my cotton pouches, I put them on the outside, but for these, I put them on the inside. So I'm going to start at 1/4 inch seam allowance on the bottom. Make sure to leave a hole for turning. I'm going to back stitch a couple of times. And then I back stitch at the beginning and end of each notch. At the beginning of each notch, just so whenever I go to sew those corners together, it doesn't come unraveled. Ask me how I know that. So again, we don't want to hit our zipper tab, and I'm going to back stitch over that seam. And I'm holding these seams down just so they don't move after I take the clip off. Then we'll just trim off our threads. So as you can see, I didn't pull up. All I did was lift up and move. So whenever I came down here, I just lifted my foot up and moved. I did not cut my threads or anything. I did that for all of them. That way you can just pick up, move, keep going. So now before we turn it, I'm going to just trim down just a little bit on my lining. I don't want to trim too much, just so it's not very bulky right there. And I definitely do not want to trim on my seams. I used to, but I stopped doing it, and it seems to be working for me. So I don't trim on these seams right here. But I will trim you're not supposed to trim until after you make your corners, but I go ahead and do it because it's so hard to trim down after you make your corners and your seam allowance is all wonky. So I just match it up in the middle, seam to seam, and I fold my seams opposite of each other so there's not a lot of bulk. Then I will clip it. And then what I do instead of just clipping the rest is I will hold it and then sew it down at 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I pull it tight so it stays straight because it likes to bow up. And I back stitch over the seam. And that's what it will look like. And we will do that for all 4 corners. Pull it straight, tight. Clip those seams together. And I don't clip the lining. It's a lot easier to hold, and I don't have to worry about the bulk for the center seam because I'm using waterproof canvas. If you're worried about bulk, just clip that center seam opposite of each other, just like we did for the exterior. I just kind of put it in the center, and I pull it tight and hold it tight with using all of my fingers to get it up underneath my foot. And I kind of slipped because I was talking. Okay, now we just trim down our seams. If they're too much, I try not to trim too much off of these corners, just to give it a little bit of more reinforcement. But I will trim anything that's maybe uneven. Again, don't be scared if not everything lined up correctly, because you can fix it. Okay, so now we will just open up that zipper all the way. And we're just going to turn it out. I am rough with my bags whenever I turn, because I want to make sure that everything's going to be okay. So if I hear a pop or a snap or something, then I can fix it before I close it, send it out to the customer who is going to be rough with your bag or item, and it breaks on them. So we're going to poke these corners out. Make sure everything is good to go before we close it up, and that you like the look of it. All right. Poke those corners out for the lining. And then what I'm going to do is just put my finger in here and kind of roll those seams down. They should roll down nicely. And then I'm just going to clip it and trim that thread. And now we're just going to sew this closed at 1/8 of an inch. And this is where I will add my tag in the middle. And I love using contrasting thread. I know a lot of people do not, but I do. I think it just, I don't know. I just love it, especially on black. I love yellow on black, orange on black, and white on black. And my favorite is red on black. Okay, so I'm just pushing those ends, those corners down into the bottom. And now what I'm going to do is just take a pencil that has like a broken end, and I'm going to put it in the bag up underneath my zipper tab. First, we need to push out these corners. There we go. Okay. Up underneath your zipper tab. There's no need to pull it or anything. You just want to run your pencil in there. I'm just pushing out that corner right there. Okay, we'll do the same thing to the other side. Sometimes, this is another reason why I don't sew the lining to the main panel, is you don't have a lot of bulk right here. And so it pushes out a lot neater right there. There we go. See? And it pushes that zipper tab up. Now I'm just going to reach in, push everything down, get it nice and neat, and close it. And there you have it. This is a peekaboo at 85%. And there's my tag. And as you can see with these zipper tabs, even though my seam allowance was 1/4, I used 3/4 away. It gave me plenty of room to pop these up. So I hope you like this tutorial. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will answer them as well as I can. I'm hoping to push out more videos, so stay tuned, and I hope that you are subscribed. If not, you can also tell me why not. You know, I take good and bad reviews or criticism. So have a good day, have a good rest of the week, and thank you for watching.